The finale has aired, Volume 7 is now over, and I can confidently say that to me, this is the best volume of RWBY so far, and I know many others agree with me. Congratulations to all those who have worked on RWBY up until this point. Thank you so much for making this show what we have come to love so much. And thank you to everyone watching this video currently for supporting me, listening to my thoughts and ramblings, and also sharing your opinions in the comments below. It's been absolutely amazing this volume, and don't worry, the RWBY content is not going to stop over the summer or anything like that. I will have announcements later on, but thank you to everyone watching this video, to the RWBY creators, and everyone who supports this series. But we still have one more episode to review. I will say spoiler warning for those who have not seen episode 13 of RWBY Volume 7, the finale of Volume 7, as I will not be showing the episode or any clips from it in this video. Simply images of the episode and analyzing the events that take place. I will leave a link in the description below so you guys can go to Rooster Teeth first, watch the episode there, and support this amazing series that we all love and enjoy. The episode starts off immediately into the Neo versus Team Alpine fight, and to me this is very reminiscent of Volume 2 when Yang fought Neo, and Neo was completely outclassing her. Neo has never been a power fighter. She's always been someone to use the opponent's power, the opponent's momentum against them, and oh boy does she use that in this fight. Now, right out of the gate, Neo is showing how strong she is, as well as the strength of her umbrella as Nora fires 2 grenades from her grenade launcher, and Neo just stands there, blocks it with her umbrella. The umbrella's fine, and Neo doesn't even budge an inch. So, yeah, Neo is pretty strong. And then she proceeds to ragdoll the entire team, minus Jean, but starts with Nora, ragdolls her, ragdolls Ren, and flings Oscar into the air, you know, making him drop the relic. And she's looking damn classy doing this. The animation of Neo and her facial expressions throughout this episode and this volume have been amazing. Considering she can't speak, this is the way she expresses herself, and I love the attention that they are putting to Neo in her expressions and how classy she's looking, even while fighting. Now, she does try to grab the relic. Oscar is able to grab it at this point, and Jean steps in, uses his gravity dust to blast Neo away. At this point, Oscar grabs her heels so that Ren can try to get a finishing blow in on her, but she uses her illusion semblance, overactive imagination, and is able to get away. Team Alpine tries to give chase, but they just end up running into Atlas soldiers. So they have to run away, as now they know they're on the wanted list. And as they're running away, something is very apparent. Jean, Ren, and Nora are still, you know, fully healthy. Their aura is still recovered, and they are full of energy. They're able to run away. Oscar's been fighting off Neo for the past however long it's been. Probably 5 to 10 minutes. Doesn't sound like much, but when you're fighting for your life, that's pretty significant. Oscar has already suffered physical damage, meaning at this point his aura was broken and he's pretty exhausted, so he's already lagging behind. But before we get to see the outcome of this, we cut to Cinder versus Penny and Winter. And speaking of people not budging an inch, well, she budges a little bit, but Penny charges at Cinder using her rocket acceleration from her feet, I guess, and Cinder just one hand with her Grim arm, yes, but still one hand blocks Penny, completely stopping her momentum. That's pretty significant, and Penny ends up getting ragdolled through a wall at this point too, and then Winter steps in, using her miniature or small Nevermores summoned agains to kind of distract Cinder, and at this point Cinder says something kind of odd, actually, for Cinder to be saying this. She says that you Atlas, your upper echelon of Atlas, higher-ups of Atlas, are all the same. You hoard power for yourselves and expect never to lose it, but all that does is make the rest of us hungrier, and Cinder refuses to starve. Now, at this point, Cinder's not starving for power. She is a maiden already, probably one of the more powerful mortals on all of Remnant. So she's not starving for power. This could be a reference back to, I believe there was a comment made in volumes 4 or 5 after Cinder was describing how it feels to have the maiden power, that she felt a hunger or incomplete or something like that. Could be a reference to that, as well as it could be a reference to Cinder's backstory. She got this desire for power from somewhere. She was probably very powerless at one point, and then Salem found her, saw some potential in her, and so on and so forth. I really hope we get a Cinder backstory in Volume 8. Ever since Cinder has returned, After Volume 5, you know, I kind of thought Volume 5 would have been a fitting end for Cinder, but I'm starting to like her character more and more after it kind of, in my opinion, wasn't that great in Volumes 4 and 5, and, you know, etc. But I'm really hoping we get to see Cinder's backstory and Neo's going forward. So, yeah. But then the fight ends up turning into 2v1, Penny and Winter versus Cinder, and Cinder's getting a bit frustrated. So she comes up with a pretty good solution. She launches herself with her maiden powers using some fire from her feet and launches all three of them through a wall and out in the open. And as we find out, the hospital that Free is being kept is on an upper floor of Atlas. Probably, I'd say, at least 10 stories or so up in the air. And all she does is just drop Winter. So then it's Penny versus Cinder again. And Penny, at this point, doesn't go after Winter, because she's still got her aura, she's still got her powers, so it's Penny versus Cinder. And Cinder acting like a true firebender, using fire from her feet and her hands to fly, probably a bit of wind magic in there as well. So it's a battle in the skies over Atlas. And Penny, to her credit, at one point, blocks a sword, or catches a sword from Cinder that she created with her maiden powers, probably also combined with her semblance. But Penny catches it instead of dodging it, which is not the right choice, as I don't think Cinder can control her sword similar to how Penny can control her swords. So the sword explodes in her face, and surprisingly, we don't see Penny's aura flicker. We haven't seen Penny's aura color at all up until this point into the RWBY series, and we don't see it here. It becomes a bit relevant later on, but I'd imagine her aura color would be the same as Pietro's, and I would have thought that it would have flickered at this point. But she doesn't have what I would consider a full aura, as, you know, most people born in the world of Remnant do. Because she only has part of Pietro's, etc. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe she doesn't actually have a fully active aura, although it's been stated that she has an aura. It's still something interesting. But Winter comes back into the fight at this point, using a brand new summon of hers. She summons a Manticore. Something that I thought would be the summon of Willow Schnee, which still could, as I pointed out in the video that I made about the possible summons of Willow Schnee. I still think that a King Taijitu is Willow's summon, but she may have a Manticore, she may not. But it does seem that every instance of Grimm that is shown in the Schnee Manor, whether it's a bust or a mounting on the wall or, you know, you'd think a giant statue, is related to one of the females able to summon Grimm in the Schnee household. We have Weiss's Armagigas, and we have Winter's Beowulf, as well as the Manticore now. So yeah, Winter's rejoined the fight, and Cinder has an easy solution to this. All she does is take out the Manticore, send one fireball at Winter, breaking her aura, and then Winter would just fall to her death. Now, if I was Cinder at that point, I would have sent an extra fireball down there, one to break the aura and one to hit her afterwards, just for good measure. But, you know, this still did the trick, as Penny decided to go after Winter, and Cinder went after the Winter Maiden. So, yeah, Winter saying her life doesn't matter. Why did you come save me? Penny disagrees, showing that Penny is keeping her humanity in this state of panic, whereas other people, Winter and Ironwood, are starting to lose their grasp on it, Ironwood in particular. Then we cut back to Team Alpine, or I guess in this case just Oscar, as they're all running away. Oscar is continuing to lag more behind because the boy's exhausted, and as they're rounding a few corners, well, Oscar loses the rest of his team. And we do see there's one bulletin board that's up giving a few instances of things that's happening around Atlas Academy. One about, you know, if you want to have 15 minutes of office hours with James Ironwood, he has those once a month, things like that. But also that the ladies' administrative bathroom is under repair currently because one of the toilets is flooding. Because, and I quote, one of them was decimated. Now, using the term decimated to describe a toilet in the ladies' washroom just sounds hilarious to me, but that must have been a bad day. Could have been a result of one of the battles or something like that, but still, that was just kind of funny. And as Oscar's now confused, not knowing where the rest of his team is, he hears soldiers coming, and someone grabs him, pulls him into a room, and, you know, keeps him from screaming out, alerting the soldiers. Nora had saved his ass. But as we all are pretty keenly aware, this isn't Nora. As Oscar turns to face her, he almost gets met with a spike in the eye, I guess is the proper term. He barely dodges Neo's stab with an umbrella, and I gotta say, the scene of Nora's eyes changing from her blue to Neo's color were just, that was fantastic. And so Oscar starts, well, Neo at this point had taken the relic from Oscar and knocked him to the side, so Neo just runs as Nora. She's using her illusions to mask herself as Nora. Similarly to how she did in last episode when she was masking herself as Oscar. And yet this time she's able to fight very well masking herself, but still took that hit from Oscar last episode. So, bit of a discrepancy here. However, Neo's ability to use herself masked as Nora is just amazing. She gets past Jean and encounters Ren. And Ren jumps in the air and is going to go for a slash, but then Neo changes her eye color back to Nora and shows a look of, like, panic, or essentially, why would you do this to me? And Ren, this emotionally damages Ren, as I'd imagine it would damage anyone. Someone that you love, you are about to cut down. That realization hurt Ren. And Neo was able to escape at this point. And she was able to round a corner and blend in with Atlas soldiers so that when Team Alpine ran after, the soldiers just fired at them. But we see as Team Alpine is running away that Nora looks back at Ren, and Ren has tears streaming down his face. That is a very powerful scene and very well animated, very well done. I love that that was put in. Neo just completely bested Team Alpine. We then see Cinder go after the Maiden Powers. She opens the coffin, pretty much, that Freya was closed in, and goes to take them with the Grim Arm. But although Freya is a sickly, elderly woman, she is by no means weak. Grabs Cinder's arm and activates her Maiden Powers, which blasts Cinder backwards, and Cinder can't get close. The room is starting to freeze, and the powers actually blast a hole in the roof and is creating like an ice cyclone, just as Penny and Winter are arriving. And Penny's asking, what exactly is that? What's going on? Winter says something very interesting here. This is the powers of a fully realized maiden. That's something significant, as I think this is the first time we've seen a fully realized maiden. Amber was still fairly inexperienced, not coming to that point yet, and I don't think Cinder or even Raven have achieved the level of a fully realized maiden. Because when Freya activated her maiden powers, the flames around her eyes seemed to burn a bit larger and a bit more intensely than Cinder's when she activated hers. It seemed that way to me. Maybe that was just the angle that we were looking at it, but I still don't think that anyone else is a fully realized maiden except Freya, because damn, she has a lot of power. Winter can't actually get close to it, because the second she does, it's so cold, it's freezing away her gloves, and probably almost giving her immediate frostbite. But luckily, Penny doesn't have any of the fleshy bits that would freeze and just jumps in anyways. Then we cut back to Team Alpine as Oscar's apologizing for losing the relic. And although Jean is saying, don't be sorry about that, Ren is kind of on... Well, he's getting a bit emotional, again, understandable, but saying, we weren't ready to become huntsmen. Nora is saying he's wrong, but Ren is saying, then why don't we have the relic? Why don't we have that in our possession? We have nothing. Salem now has the relic of knowledge, Ironwood has the relic of creation, we have nothing. Now, Oscar's feeling kind of bad at this point, because he's the one who lost the relic, and one thing that Ren seems to be missing. Nora, Jean, and Ren have been training to be huntsmen for a long time, and then they were finally given their huntsman certifications. Oscar was not. Oscar was a farmhand up until, what, maybe a year ago? Probably less. And, yeah, he doesn't have the training. He currently at this moment, doesn't have Ozpin's memories and experience to draw back on. Yes, he's starting to gain a lot of strength and skill in battle at a pretty alarming rate compared to how everyone else learned, but still, he is not a huntsman. He is not as well trained as everyone else. Ren is not really being conscious of Oscar's feelings at this point. Needless to say, they are interrupted by Pietro calling them. He has been able to re-hack into the scrolls and get communications back online. And they're essentially preparing a ship for them to get the hell out of there. So the soldiers arrive and everyone takes off again. Except it's Jean, Nora, and Ren who are going to meet the ship, and Oscar has resolved himself to do something on his own. We then see Penny standing in front of Freya, who seems to have lost control of her powers at this point, or at the very least is not really aware of what's going on. Penny's able to walk up and grab her ankle and kind of snap her out of it. And Penny showing her humanity yet again, instead of saying, you need to calm down, you need to stop activating your powers, she simply asks, are you okay? Concerned about Freya's safety and her mental state instead of what else is happening. And Freya starts going on about the duty to protect the maiden powers, and she's ready to finally pass them on. Penny reminding her that she'll die if she does that, Freya's willing to accept the consequences. And as she kind of collapses to the ground on death's door after activating the maiden powers like this, she asks Penny her name. And also, are you the one, implying the one that I've been waiting for to pass the powers on to? Penny, we don't really see that she's able to answer that much. She's kind of struggling with an answer. But before we see that conclusion, we see the most emotional person of all currently, Ironwood, as he's standing in front of the vault to the relic of creation. And the elevator activates behind him. Ah, Winter, good. I'm glad you made it. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. You know, killing an old lady and taking the power that she had, not to mention the pain of probably having someone's aura transplanted on you. It seemed Pyrrha was in a lot of pain back in Volume 3, so this probably still wouldn't be a very pleasant experience. But it wasn't Winter. As we know she's occupied elsewhere, it's Oscar, who has come to talk to Ironwood, using his cane as support because he's still not in the greatest of shape. But Ironwood first starts off by commenting, ah, good choice not to bring the Relic of Knowledge near me. I wouldn't trust me either. Oscar doesn't really acknowledge this and just goes on to talk about trust, saying that we need to rebuild the trust that was lost. We can still do this together. This doesn't have to be the only way, etc. Which is probably the right choice, because if he mentioned to Ironwood just, yeah, Salem has one of the relics now, or at least it's on its way to Salem. Neo kind of stole it. Sorry about that. Probably would have drove Ironwood over the edge. Speaking of over the edge, though, the concept of fear gets brought up. Ironwood saying, oh, you still think I'm afraid? And Oscar responds with, it's what happens when we're feeling this fear that reveals who we really are. And Ironwood starts getting very emotional, as someone would if they were afraid. Huh, funny how that works. And starts going off saying, I was right. I was right about Salem. The second I softened up, the second I let my guard down, she found a way in. But Oscar's saying that if you do this, if you abandon Mantle, you're abandoning all of Remnant, leaving millions to fend for themselves. Exactly what I said in the video about if Ironwood's plan would succeed, this isn't the right choice. Ironwood says, I'm not going to let anyone stand in my way anymore. Not the council, not anyone, not even you. Well, that just makes you as dangerous as Salem, James. Oh, but only my friends call me James. To you, I'm General Ironwood. And then pulls out his gun and shoots Oscar, causing him to fall over the edge that Ironwood had been continuously backing him towards as he's been in his emotional state. So, Ironwood has completely abandoned his humanity. We see no emotion in his eyes as he shot Oscar, someone who's supposed to be the reincarnated version of a friend he had for over a decade, I would assume, and, yeah, nothing. No emotion, no humanity is left in Ironwood. He is going to die next volume, most likely. And it is notable that Oscar did have his aura at this point. I'm pretty sure that in the fight with Neo, it would have been broken, as it did seem that Oscar had physical damage. It may have been just dust or something that he picked up while fighting her, but, you know, probably scorch marks, because Atlas Academy isn't really that dusty or anything like that, so probably scorch marks, probably physical damage, but in the time from having that fight with Neo till now, he was able to restore enough aura at least to withstand that one shot from Ironwood, though this did break his aura and caused him to fall down a giant chasm. It seems all relic vaults are built over a giant chasm in which someone seems to be thrown off the edge. I wonder if this is going to be a continuing theme. But also with this, it seems that people don't necessarily die if they're tossed down however many stories of a fall that would be. Cinder survived, and most likely Oscar will too. But before we get to see more of that, we see Penny again, as she is standing in front, or cradling Freya still, but Cinder decides to join the fight. She breaks in and goes to attack Penny and Freya with the Grim Arm, trying to steal the powers because Freya's vulnerable, etc. But we see something very interesting here as well. Winter jumps in and slashes off Cinder's arm. It is completely chopped off. Well, not completely. We still see the nub or so in just the upper forearm and the bicep area, and Cinder's in a great amount of pain. So she can obviously feel pain with that. We saw that back in Volume 5 when Raven put, a shard through it. So, yeah, Cinder is screaming in pain as the thing regenerates. What does it regenerate from? Does it regenerate from Cinder's magic? Does it use her aura in some way? Or does it regenerate from the power that Salem gifted her in this Grim Arm? Or is this a special type of Grim on its own? A lot of questions come from this and probably will spawn a video of its own. But then Cinder turns to Winter and starts relentlessly attacking her. Because how dare you cut off my arm type thing. And Winter, at this point, her aura is broken and she starts being overwhelmed. With Cinder's anger continually creating blades and slashing at her, like she's getting damaged and she's about to die. And then we see Penny resolve herself to take the powers, or accept the powers from Freya. She grabs Freya's arm, and we see the blue aura that Freya has kind of start engulfing Penny's arm as well. And then we get to the point where a lot of stuff happens in a very short amount of time, which makes sense, but it just flickers between a lot of stories as they're happening simultaneously. Now, we see Oscar falling down a giant chasm. This thing is a good 10-second to 60-second drop at least. He's falling all the way to the base of Atlas, essentially. And he's about to pass out. The pressure of falling is probably getting to him, but a voice snaps him out of it. Ozpin's voice. And Oscar wakes up and goes to grab the cane that is falling next to him. He's remembered something or recalled something, and he's going to grab the cane to try to save himself. And then we see, just as Cinder is about to finish off Winter, walking towards her with a blade, Winter's hair is no longer up in a bun, it's fallen down, and she's very beaten up. We see wind of snow start to spiral around. And then we see that Penny stands up, and we see green flames on Penny's eyes. So that, in and of itself, just signifies that the flames that a person has is not resembling the maiden powers itself. The flames have nothing to do with that. They are burning the color of a person's aura. Penny's aura is green, although we don't see the aura. The flames signify it. Freya's aura was blue, passes on the powers to Penny, the flames become green. Raven's were a bright crimson red. Cinder's are an orange-ish, similar to Amber's color, but Amber probably just had a similar aura color. We're learning more about maidens as the series goes on, which I really like that it's not just explicitly stated. However, Penny is about to blast Cinder, or at least they're about to have a clash of maiden powers, which would have been really interesting, but Weiss and RWBY show up. Weiss very concerned about Winter, but Cinder turns and sees RWBY about to activate the Silver Eyes. So, yeah, Cinder ends up running. We see Oscar as he's continuing to fall. He is activating the power of the cane. We know, or at least had found out previously, that the cane has the ability to store time. And now we get to see what that power actually is. As Oscar is holding the cane, the gears start to shift, and we see sort of a golden light reflect or revolve around Oscar as he is falling. not to mention, as he's falling down this pipe, I kind of got a very Luke Skywalker vibe from Episode 5 of Star Wars, when Darth Vader cuts off his arm, throws him down, and he ends up in that tube. Yeah, I got a real vibe of that from here, but, you know, did anyone else kind of get that? Anyways, what ends up happening is the time that is stored in the staff is able to revert Oscar's aura back to before it was broken. At least that's the way I think it is, as Oscar was able to use his aura to break the basin of the chasm, which was just like a metal plate, it looked like, and he was able to break through. And now he's falling from Atlas all the way down to Mantle. So, yeah, that's gonna be a rough fall. However, he has the capabilities now to save himself. He now has his aura. And we see that, cutting back and forth between many different things, as I said, we see Penny, who is very upset that Freya has died. Winter is now in a rough state. Cinder has run away. Weiss goes over to Winter. RWBY goes over to Penny. And then Winter essentially says, you should surrender or run. She calls for reinforcements as well as medical care for herself, forcing them to run away. We see that Blake and Yang, as well as Pietro and Maria, have picked up Team Alpine now, or at least Alpine minus Oscar, and they're not in the greatest of states either. Ren has his arms around his head, and he's very emotional now, which, again, very understandable, very distraught. And then they go and are able to pick up Weiss and RWBY and Penny as well. Penny does join them on the ship. She has turned her back on Ironwood and Winter as well, because they've abandoned their humanity. Penny hasn't. So now everyone is on the ship flying away, and we see a very nice scene where RWBY and Weiss both, you know, hold each of Penny's arms, and Penny is loved. She has friends, we knew this, but it was really nice to see that Pietro was able to see her daughter, or his daughter, be happy, have friends, and, you know, be a real girl, essentially. Throughout all of this, we also see Crow. As the authorities come to take him, Crow had waited with Clover's body for them to arrive to make sure that it was taken care of. And we see that Robin ends up waking up too. She didn't really need medical care, but she was unconscious before, and now they are being taken away. We see that Crow has Clover's charm. And I hoped, this is one thing I hoped after last episode, after Clover had died and how emotional Crow got, I had hoped that the charm that Clover had, Crow would take with him for the rest of the series. And we see him holding it, still covered in Clover's blood as he's on the ship. And we see Robin there supporting him. Now, I'm not one for ships that much. I do have ones that I support throughout the series, but more than any other right now. I really like Bumblebee, and even more than that right now, I want Crow and Robin to build a relationship together. I think that they would be perfect for each other. Birds of a feather flock together. I would absolutely love that to be the case. But, you know, before that, we see some other interesting things. Watts is alive, by the way. He was just imprisoned. Ironwood didn't actually drop him to his death. Thank you, RWBY writers. I knew you had faith that Watts had more to do. He's probably going to end up dying next volume after he gets released and causes more mayhem. Probably going to end up dead, but he still has more to do, and hopefully we get to see his semblance as well as Ironwood's, which Ironwood now knows from Winter that the powers are gone. So he has no way to get the Relic of Creation or succeed in his plan, and starts freaking out. But his plan never would have succeeded anyways. I mentioned this also in the video that I made about what if Ironwood's plan succeeded. The first obstacle that he faced after, you know, quelling the rebellion of Team RWBY and everyone else was that Salem's army might arrive before Atlas could even be raised to the atmosphere. And lo and behold, what happens now? After Oscar is able to land on the ground using an aura shield or aura sphere that we saw Ozpin use, I think it was the same technique Ozpin used against Cinder at the end of Volume 3, he's able to do his superhero landing. I don't think this is his semblance. I think this is just Oscar utilizing Ozpin's memories and experiences of extending his aura outwards. I still don't think it's a semblance, but Ozpin has now returned. Oscar is talking to Ozpin saying, doesn't matter what else you want to say at the moment, just how do we save Atlas currently? Because it's under siege now. we see or hear reports coming into the Manta ship that Pietro and Maria took that how are there all these readings? What is going on? Are you all seeing this? As the shadows reach Atlas, you know, as they said in The Lord of the Rings, the shadows are guiding Mordor's army, and the second they reach the borders of the city, the battle for Middle-earth, or in this case, Remnant, will begin. And lo and behold, that is what's happening. As the shadow looms, out of it comes the giant black whale, signifying the death of everyone. This is the biggest Grimm we have seen by a mile. Actually, probably few dozen miles, probably. This thing is just massive, and it's got a glowing yellow inside of it, very reminiscent of the God of Light, almost. Maybe that's what happened to the Pool of Creation. It's just inside a large Grimm. Who knows? But this thing is massive. We see what I'd assume are flying Beringles next to it, and they are just a speck. And then we see Salem riding on top of the Grimm, on top of the whale. And she's got a new outfit in her battle attire as well, and she's looking terrifying, but also fabulous at the same time. Fantastic way that this episode was animated, that this episode was done. It's also worth noting that while a bunch of different things were happening at the end of the episode, Ozpin was narrating once again, something that I've missed in the first few volumes. He's talking about fear, that the one common thing that every living thing has is fear. Fear of getting close to someone and eventually losing that person you get close to. Fear of failure. Talking about Cinder as she's very pissed off that she failed in getting the Winter Maiden powers. But also fear of what you will become under those circumstances. Will that person that's staring back at you, will you forgive them for what they did when they were under fear? Will they be a changed person afterwards? Or are they what you should have feared all along? Very, very significant, and again, something that will probably prompt its own video, something that I've wanted to do ever since seeing the apathy back in Volume 6. I've really wanted to do a video on the concept of fear, and this is going to be the perfect time to do so. But Cinder ends up taking the relic also from Neo, as Neo presents it to her, just taking it and not even acknowledging her, just saying, oh, good work, or anything like that. Just takes it and just like, good, now I can get back in Salem's good graces having a relic. So, yeah, a lot of things happen in this finale. Very well done. I fully believe that this surpassed Volume 3 by a large margin, actually. Volume 3 was fantastic, but this is a whole nother level. I have very high anticipations for Volume 8, and I am 100% sure that the writers of Team RWBY, the animators, everyone who works on it, the voice actors, etc., all have it in them to move on to greater volumes, and RWBY will continue to grow from this point, and I hope that you all will stick with me as I continue to make videos on RWBY, theories, and other plans that I have for this gap between Volume 7 and 8. A lot of things I want to talk about, a lot of plans that I have for video series, etc., which I will make announcements on later, but this episode was definitely something else. Seeing the new Grimm imposing the battle that is about to come, that is probably going to consume all of Volume 8, which is going to be amazing. We see that Watts is alive and still has a part to play. Tyrion is somewhere running throughout Mantle as well. He's going to have a part to play. Possibly Watts and Tyrion will die next volume as well. We see that Penny is now the Winter Maiden. I kind of thought that was the case after episode 11, actually, when Winter was going off to get the Winter Maiden powers. We knew that that's where she was headed, and Penny was with her. At that point, I was like, couldn't Penny just get the Winter Maiden powers? A lot of people in the comments below said, no, that's not going to happen, because Penny gets her aura from Pietro, who's an old man. Which, after hearing that, I'm like, yeah, that seems accurate. But Penny got the powers anyways. Now, this is probably due to a couple different things. One, Penny took Pietro's aura and made it her own, because she's her own individual person. She's not just a carbon copy of Pietro, personality-wise at least. She is her own person, has her own emotions, her own personality. And I think that is the case as to why she was able to inherit the Maiden powers. It also seems like there was maybe something more than just thinking about Penny that caused the powers to pass on. It seemed like it was almost passing, if you're holding the person's hand, it passes through contact as well, maybe, as thinking about them. There's going to be much more information about the maidens coming in future volumes of RWBY. We haven't even met the Summer Maiden yet. There's still Raven, who's the Spring Maiden, and is probably not going to be by the end of the series. Similarly with Cinder, she's definitely not going to live to the end of the series, because there's pretty much no redemption for her, similar to Tyrion. And then, like, all the things that happened this episode. Ozpin has returned as well. I'm so happy to have him back. Like, I really liked Ozpin's character. I kind of understood the reasoning why he did things. We can get an explanation now, an expansion on the Lost Fable, more information from Ozpin, as well as, you know, I really liked his voice acting and everything like that, so it's nice to have him back. So let me know what you guys thought of this episode. How did you enjoy the battles, the animation, this volume in its entirety? I'm still going to do an entire Volume 7 review next week, as well as, you know, what to expect for Volume 8. So, you know, things to look forward to on top of other videos that I have planned. But one thing I also want to point out about this episode, the animation was fantastic. With certain characters in particular. Neo is one of them, as well as Salem's new design. They were just really nice. I think this was the first time we got to see Neo's hair from the back, and it looks quite fantastic. I gotta say, like, Neo's design is really nice. The design of everyone in this series, like, all around, just an amazing episode, an amazing series, and I would love to know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel with this being the finale of Volume 7? How excited are you for Volume 8? It's going to be a long wait. Hopefully I'll be able to help with more RWBY content to make that wait a little bit shorter, but we'll see. So, look forward to that. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Follow me or tweet me at Phoenix Knight 7, and I'll see you guys in the next video.